Morning everybody. Thank you for coming along. My name is Paul Sang. I'm the head of collaboration solutions at RedCentric. So my presentation today is the longest going. So I have quite a long title there, as you can see. Capitalise on the global workplace transformation of RedCentric cloud calling collaboration. Deliberately put quite a long title in there because it does encompass quite a lot of detail that I've had to cut down a lot because I've only got 20 minutes, I think 25 minutes. But this is I've condensed the slide deck quite a lot to make sure that you get the overall messages. And I'm obviously here for the rest of the remainder of the day as the rest of the team. If you've got any further questions or if you had some more specific solutions or answers that you needed answering that we'll be able to assist you with. Okay, so today's session is talking about collaboration and the HSN overlay around our video services, and you know the BT N3 video services obviously going out of end of life, or it's not already done so already, and what you're going to use to replace that, how some of the use cases around that. We've got a case study as well we can touch on at the end, and also how RedCentric can assist you in that journey of moving into the collaboration space and what we've done so far. So everyone okay with that? Everyone make sure we're in the right place and we'll understand what we want to do? Okay. So the challenges we're calling today, so where are you with your journey? Where are your organisations? We like to think of it as almost like a journey. So that journey consists at the minute, maybe you're just doing calling, just voice only, you're just talking about an old PBX perhaps, maybe you've got some IP telephony in there. What does that service look like today? How are your patients, how are your customers, how are your suppliers, how are your vendors, how are your partners, how are they contacting you today? Right? It may be, as I say, maybe only a calling in service, and you may have sporadic use of some video services, etc., kind of out there. So today, some of the challenges we're going to call out are things like the cost and complexity of the service. It's costing you a lot of money, it's costing you expense, it's costing you some expertise, resource. How is that impacting on the ability for you to get a great calling experience for your organisation? You're seeing a disconnected calling experience, for example. How does it use this stuff? Is it old? Am I working the way I'm working? Is your organisation working because you're limited by the sort of technology and the solution you have at the moment, or do you like to work that way? Is it a bit of both, should we say? And obviously, these days, work-life balance. Are you penalising your workforce mobility? Are you enabling that? How are your colleagues? How is your organisation getting out there, enabling that to happen? So these are really important parts of some elements of that. Some more painful than others, perhaps, or some of those perhaps more apparent in your organisations. But some of the challenges that we see today are apparent there. So the benefits of integration and services, calling teams, collaboration, customer care, is to increase some of those outcomes that we want to see is obviously our higher overall productivity, reducing that cost and complexity, and better customer or patient interactions. Okay. So some of the priorities for organisations are really important as well. So I've called out 5 there. Which are some of the top priorities for organisations that are important, that would sit within some of the organisations today, that in no particular order, but obviously in terms of your own specific organisation, you may decide that some of those are more priority than others, if that makes sense. So, for example, transforming the workplace experience to the next generation. So those new university graduates, those new employees, your new colleagues that come on board, what does that kind of look like? They have an expectation of some technology that they should be using, or some solution that they should be using. Are you embracing that, or are you telling them to use something old or something that they're not familiar with? Supporting users' work styles, devices and their apps, very much the internet, shall we say, and the internet and the millennials today. Enabling high quality, secure, real-time communications, that's also very important. Obviously, the emphasis on high quality and secure, and the real-time communication is obviously video conferencing and bundled in with calls, etc. Reducing the cost of that is obviously we want to try and make it as cost effective as possible, but more importantly is giving you the getting rid of your old technology. So almost like using your existing spend that you have on your old technology, and keeping tech investments current. So this thing is moving, collaboration and the whole piece around collaboration is moving at such a fast pace these days that to a point where if you're standing still, you're kind of going backwards. Yeah? To a point where so many things are happening, so many new features, new technology, new solutions are coming up into place that are you able to keep up? So some of the things that RedCentric are able to assist you with and look at that for you is looking at the power of our RedCentric's Cisco collaboration platform. So we've got a whole myriad of solutions there that goes from sort of MS Teams, Cisco WebEx calling, WebEx meetings, we've got Cisco HCS, we've got Cisco Jabber and BroadSoft, etc. And then we have a whole bunch of devices, iPads, telephony, and you've got even the mobile world out there. So things literally having SIM cards that you don't even have to have a mobile number, for example. Can be just an extension number, can be a landline number as well, a 0102 number. All that can be sat within our data services, within our data centers, within our collaboration platforms, and you kind of choose what you want to use, right? So if any of those are you're familiar with, for example, Cisco or Microsoft Teams, or even if you've got a Skype, if you're moving into that from a Skype scenario, we have the ability and we have the feature set that enables you to migrate and take a whole plethora of services from that point. So just remind ourselves what a great team collaboration solution looks like. So if we're moving away from just purely voice, and we want to start collaborating, start moving into video service and looking at getting more value and more business outcomes and also our productivity from our colleagues and our organisation, we should be looking for high value tools altogether. You should be open to anyone. You should have advanced security. You should have an awesome mobile experience. It should be native whiteboarding for all, enhanced productivity in meeting rooms. We've chosen this particular one because we have this the Cisco WebEx meeting room kit here, and we've got obviously the meetings, which is critical for progress. So it's really important that in this world, as it were, in this new world where we're collaborating, especially where we have lots of people that are all over the place, as it were, it's important that when you look at these things, is that we know that work doesn't happen just between these four walls anymore. Work happens outside of these walls, whenever, out of hours, or whenever it's the flexible work-life balance, where you can involve your people that want to collaborate in a team. We know that one single person is not going to be able to get the results that your organisations are looking for. So the importance of that is to get involved around the team. How do you provide that to them? And involving everybody in doing so. So one of the things I've particularly haven't put onto this one, and this is what's bringing the speed, the agility, okay, is the agility of an organisation, is the ability for you to very quickly come together and make sure that you can collaborate very easily and work together. And all the things I'm talking about are the things that you kind of already know. So things like instant messaging, presence, voice, video. But what about things like call recording? What about analytics? What about transcription? All those extra services that you don't probably currently have or consume, they can be easily overlaid onto any of the services that we've talked about, I mentioned earlier. So agility, we like to say, is the new currency of business. So it's really important that the ability for you to react and to come together and get those solutions out for your patients, out to your customers, out to your vendors, is involve as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, and no matter where they are. So digital economy, as you see now, is we've got a lot of people that work remotely. How do you involve those people? It's important that you didn't penalise these people just because they work in a different way, right? So we know that, I said, I'm a remote worker. I'm not based out of Harrogate. My work lifestyle allows me to work wherever I want to work effectively, i.e. the internet. So the ability for me to come in and do any work at any time and collaborate and be accessible and share and not have be disadvantaged in any way, actually a consistent experience that goes across that is really, really important when you're looking at these, when you're looking at any particular collaboration solution. So now we talked about collaboration and how it's important and where you're kind of moving from just a calling experience. Well, we've kind of seen it and done it. We've done it at Skype, and we've obviously looked at some of the other applications over the years. But what is the new wave of collaboration that we've talked about? So we're going into things like cognitive collaboration now. So what does that mean? So we've moved from just being, let's collaborate, let's all meet, let's go video conferencing. What does that kind of look like, right? So here we've got this whole WebEx room in terms of the toolkit and the room kit we have here. We've got face AI recognition. So for example, when we're in this room, it will, and we can obviously show you as part of the demo later on if you're interested, squares of people's faces, and it automatically starts recognizing people, who they are, who's in the room, how often they are, and it will scan that, and it will also, and if you've linked them up correctly, it'll also show you their profile page. So there isn't a Mr. Not sure what his name is, or Mrs. Not sure. It's about knowing who's in the room. It's about the AI that sits behind it. So who attends meetings, how often they attend meetings, how likely they attend meetings, who they attend meetings with, who they speak to, do they present, do they use the room. All this information that you're giving out from a collaboration perspective is sat with these things now. So artificial intelligence is something is here for the long term, AI. So things like, for example, where we're using WebEx as an example, as a collaboration platform. As I mentioned earlier, you can have recording that sits behind that, sat in the cloud or locally. You can also have WebEx Assistant, the ability to join through voice, just calling out actually onto the WebEx itself, almost like Siri or Alexa in a sense. And you can also have transcription. So imagine how powerful that looks like, and some of the things that we're doing around. We've moved from purely from an IPT perspective, doing voice only, moving into video, and then now we're introducing this kind of technology into various customers of ours. In NHS, for example, some CCGs are now taking this service on board and actually inviting, trialing this service into the patients, out of hour service, extended hour service, also into the larger scale MDT scenarios where they have ability to bring in consultants, patients, their translators, and perhaps their interpreters and their relations, etc. All in one room, virtually, but having all that context sat behind it. So, the other thing that's important to know is that any collaboration platform that you do choose is connected with apps. Okay, so the things that you use, the ability for you to use that, and how that integrates into any collaboration platform. So for example, if you are using SharePoint, if you're using Slack, if you're using OneDrive, any of those things that are sat here, there's purposely I've put some black icons in there because this thing is growing so quickly in terms of the ability for integration, is that we know that you're going to be using these things. So if natively your collaboration platform already has that integration in place, then the ability for you to go and pull that information out from those other applications your organization uses is already there. You haven't got to think about starting again. Okay? So, coming back to our platform and the way that we look at it is that, remember, lots of devices, whatever you choose. Our collaboration platforms that sit in between are hybrid of those, if you like, or any particular one of those, and the open integration that sits behind it. So I know that some of the organisations that are present today are very much focused on Microsoft, have a Microsoft preference in terms of what their vendors looks like. The good news is that they come together. Cisco and Microsoft have built that bridges, which means that that kit that we're seeing up here can easily join a Microsoft Teams event, meeting, and vice versa. So if you have a Microsoft Teams as your preference, your collaboration platform, they are easily able to join WebEx events as well. Okay? So the integration deeply within Cisco, for example, it has OneDrive, SharePoint integration directly. So those are important considerations. Obviously, if you're using WebEx Cisco as your preference for your collaboration platform, is that you're still able to access any of these things that are sat behind on this side, right? So it should be an open standard, and more importantly is that you're leveraging existing investments that you may have in other technology and other vendors. So just very quickly, we're going to move on to a case study we have here. So NHS case study, the Sandwell and West Clinical Commissioning Group, the CCG, they formed part of a wider procurement that we've delivered into GP practices across the Birmingham region. And more importantly around this one is that 57, as it were, was back into it, is growing all the time. And Michael Mann here is the service delivery manager that obviously looks after that particular CCG. He's around today as well if you want to talk more about this in detail. But the key to this is that we've moved them from being where Simon mentioned earlier, a desperate amount of services, PBXs out there. They're all different types, all different people, different suppliers, different vintage, different technologies, all over the place. And with particularly this CCG and across that Birmingham region is that we now have one consistent platform across the lot. So that one platform happens to be the Cisco BroadSoft platform that sits across that. We're delivering IP telephony into nearly sort of, I think it's about 500-ish surgeries now, GP surgeries across that Midlands region. Again, looking at that, it's a consistent experience. And the way that they can just move now with that experience and start adding these extra overlay services, like we just talked about from a collaboration perspective, is really, really easy for them to do that. So for us, and the challenges that they faced, we're just coming back on that, is the growing demand for services. Need for cheaper and free calls and efficiencies. Management reporting tools to inform service design and delivery. So these are really important things that sat behind a CCG. Why they want to start reducing costs, why they want to have a better patient experience, that growing demand. So the ability for them to collaborate internally. So when I say internally, I mean as in GP practices coming together to act as a team or a wider team, and then start sharing resources such as switchboard operators or clinical practice nurses, etc. They're having to learn a new system. It's the same one, the same platform that goes across the whole of that Midlands area. Okay, so that integration, ultimately delivering better customer and patient-focused care. That's what we're looking for, right? So, a slide here. We asked for feedback from the patients, and you'd expect some of the sort of responses they're kind of saying, I want to call the GP reception, get a quick response from my. That's not an unreasonable thing to say, right? To say I want to be able to get hold of my GP. I want to get my results quickly. I want to be treated with respect. I want to have confidence leaving a message. All those kind of things are all just very reasonable things that a patient can expect or should expect from contacting their GP clinicians and their surgeries, right? So from that, and what we've delivered is this is some very specific quotes that have come out from the case study from Sandwell. Things as simple as the call recording function is ACE. So the ability for us to get those recordings, getting that quality of care from terms of where the calls have been made, complaints, etc. Transforming that business. So in a sense, it's almost like a business transformation. So we're transforming from being, I've got a really antiquated system that's very difficult to call in, getting the appointment, finding the right time, getting my results, getting all the right level of communication with my people, with my patient population. Now it's the point that actually we're able to report on it. We've got customization in terms of the call flows, the ability for patients to come in, and we have all the AI that sits behind that. And now they're moving into extended hours, the ability to have video conferencing around the collaboration, and then obviously the much wider picture around that. So, and the last slide, concluding slide is Vestcentrix in the middle. We've got all these platforms that we said, and all our experience and technology and our resources that sit behind that. And these are things that we would want you to, we advocate of, obviously in terms of being an open standard, intelligent, secure, extensible, it's flexible, it's premises aware around the kit. We do have in one of the pods, actually in the main office, It's a Cisco DX80, so it's almost like a large screen in a sense. A WebEx device, effectively, that we're installing directly into premises, into GP practices that allow patients to literally walk up and join collaborations with sessions with their GPs, which might be somewhere else entirely. And we've also given them, obviously, business insight and control, so the ability of who's using the services and where they're using these services and what value they're getting out of the services. So, questions we're going to take from here, but the next steps really is then we'll obviously welcome this, is to find out where you are on this journey, where your organisations are, what your patients are looking like, where are the pinch points, where are the pain points, can we improve that patient experience that's important. We absolutely welcome that feedback, and we can to assist you in that migration and getting some good ideas so that you can see what the art of the possible is today. So we take any questions from the floor?
Paul, I know I'm not supposed to speak on these, but
Absolutely fine, Mark.
you've got different people, different organisations, different parts of the journey. If somebody hasn't made allowance for 2020, how long realistically would it take them from start to finish?
So good question. I think the importance to remember is that remember what Mark said at the beginning. He said things are internet first, or internet should be internet enabled, right? So this service that we're providing across from a collaboration service is already internet enabled already, right? So it goes across the internet. It just happens to run across HSCN as an overlay in that respect, but it's already internet first. So the ability for you to join collaboration sessions around from remote devices, so be them iPhones or Android devices or tabs or whatever they are, okay, is internet first, right? So that, in a sense, is slightly irrelevant in the sense that you can already be internet first today, right? And that timeline around the 2020s is there. It's not going to go away, but more importantly is that you're ready already. You're there at this point.
So it's more the dependency is upon the organisation, not on the technology.
Yeah, the technology is already here. The technology is advancing at a great pace, as you know, around the ability for to add additional features and services around the collaboration platforms that we provide. It's now the ability for your organisation to figure out where you are on that journey, the ability for you to change users change behaviour, and the ability for you then to adopt that technology that sits within that organisation. That behaviour change is a big change. Your colleagues and your organisation, how hard or how difficult or how easy it could be for them to migrate from where they are today, right? And when you're showing them something different, you're showing them the art of the possible, yes, absolutely, but you may not be ready to have all this AI and face recognition sat behind here today. You might have an antiquated PBX that needs it's on fire in the corner, that needs to be put out and moved on to an IPT level at the simple stage at the beginning. Does that answer your question, Mark? Yeah?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, obviously, I work with you, we know how fast we can deploy things, but we don't understand because every organisation is different.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's what's their procurement cycle, what do they need to go through to make sure that 2020, and I suppose I'm asking the question just to these guys to say, are you aware of what you need to do to hit the date? Because everything's ready for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Any further questions on the floor?
Can I just ask on your video calling and things? What's the difference between what you're offering, which is a Cisco-based thing, to what Cisco offer themselves, just as a normal web-based?
So our WebEx calling, effectively, in terms of we're offering a complete solution. So if you're looking at what Cisco offering, it's WebEx or WebEx Teams, and it's a video conferencing service with various features, etc. From us is that you remember that may only form part of one collaboration tool that you're using, right? So, for example, what's happening with the telephony, what you're doing about audio telephony, what about conferencing, what about call recording, what about call reporting? What about all your group features such as receptionist and call centres? WebEx is great, but does it really cater for those? Not today, it doesn't. So with RedCentric's portfolio is that we have the ability for you to mix all those different types of platforms and give you that hybrid solution. So we can have WebEx, Teams and WebEx sat with that integration with MS Teams if you want to do that, as the choice for collaboration tools, absolutely. But we can also run our BroadSoft platform sat, for example, our contact center, for example, that may sit with a receptionist, with phones on desk, etc. And we also have a Cisco HCS platform, which is a service provider model for the Cisco call managers of this world. Again, very fully featured. That helps people migrate away from the Cisco on-premise solutions as well. So if you move your phone numbers to us effectively, and port them to us, we can deliver those phone numbers back in any of those platforms that you so wish. That's the RedCentric value add at that point. Yeah. Any sort of sorry, go on.
I guess. I mean, I work with GP practices in Leeds, and I guess it's how do you sell that to GP practices?
Yes.
They're very cost conscious.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
They know they can get an offering web-based Cisco for something like £11 a month or something.
I think the key to it is that especially with Leeds, and obviously I was quite instrumental in the design of that some years ago, is that they continue to use the leverage, the investment they have in the Cisco BroadSoft platform, and how that integration piece with WebEx, because obviously it's now all Cisco, as it were, and the ability that licensing model is very, very key as well, because you're only paying for the host and not the delegates or the visitor access or the guest access, which means that theoretically, if you're signing up to Cisco WebEx from a host perspective, you're only paying for one host, but you can have up to, I think it's like 700 users or guests joining your one. So that makes a very cost-effective way of presenting to lots of people. And the other things that we add onto that are things like call recording, video record, WebEx recording. We have call transcription, for example, so video call transcription, so that's something new. And also the annotation that sits behind that as well. So if you want to put that in there, and there's a lot to it these days, and you shouldn't be afraid, to be able to turn those things on as and when you want to use those. So I say you're not going to be ready today, but you might be in a year's time, perhaps. The other thing I was going to say to you was that we did our services that we've provided into Sandwell and West particular, but that was part of a much wider procurement route for the NHS around the Midlands area, and that was hosted by a particular CSU, Clinical Services Unit, called Arden and Gem. So that was featured actually on the BBC News some time ago, and showing how RedCentric's solution has actually increased the amount of efficiencies and reduce the cost for those people in those areas. So I would that's featured on our website. So I would urge you to go and have a look at that if you're interested to see some real life examples of what other people are saying about what our services are providing. I think we're finishing with time. So any further questions? Great. So come and find me if you have some more questions. I'm more than happy to help where I can. Thank you very much.